we're breaking this down into 4 sections: the introduction, the background, the about, and the advice. So let's get started with the introduction. My name is Adaatude. I am a social media content creator, influencer, blogger, YouTuber, basically somebody who creates a lot of content online and shares it with her audience. I started this back in 2012, and this is now my full-time job. I do consider myself an entrepreneur. I get that question all the time, and I do consider it an entrepreneurial adventure just because I'm not working for another company. I basically created my own. I live in Tucson, Arizona. I have been here since 2009, and I originally came to Tucson from Los Angeles because I went to University of Arizona. I graduated in 2013, and I studied psychology, and my minor was business writing. And that kind of became an interesting thing because I originally started off as business major, and I switched it to my minor, I think it was junior year, because I just was more interested in psych and learning more about the human mind than about math 115A and B and accounting. I just don't really like math, let's be honest. So I flip-flopped the two, so I didn't have to stay an extra year because my minor was my major and my major was my minor. So yeah, I didn't lose any time, which was really nice. Some interesting or fun facts. I am originally from Bosnia. I came here when I was 5 years old because of the breaking of Yugoslavia and the genocide going on in Eastern Europe at the time. And we came here, we originally went to Philly, lived there for a couple years, and then I grew up in Los Angeles. So Tucson is actually the most relaxed place I've ever lived because, as you can imagine, Philly and LA are both crazy cities, and Bosnia was crazy because there was war. So yeah, Tucson has just been a nice, relaxed, comfortable lifestyle. And actually what kept me here was when I graduated in 2013, just 2 months before graduation, I got recruited to the company that I just left last October to pursue this content and social media life full-time. And back then I was doing a lot of travel, and it just kind of weaved into all my content. But how I originally started, 2012, I'm about 7 months away from graduation, and I know I'm going to be taking this writing course. One of the requirements for the course was to write a blog and have 10 blog posts within the semester. So back then I was really interested in electronic dance music, and I was very into the scene. That was when Tiesto, Avicii, Swedish House Mafia, all of those guys were super hot. It was really hitting the mainstream scene, and I just loved going to the events. There was a lot going on in Tucson as well, especially because it was a college crowd. So I wrote 10 blog posts basically talking about things to wear, how to do your makeup, stay hydrated, just different things. Obviously I kept it PG because my professor was reading all the blog posts, but I just wrote about that. My friends were the ones who gave me some of the most amazing feedback, and they said, your writing sounds just how you are when you just talk to me one-on-one. It's very conversational, it's comfortable, it's relaxed, it's not formal, it's just you. So what happens is I graduate, I get into this corporate job, this 9 to 5, and it requires a lot of travel. And it was also, the job came with a nice paycheck. So I traveled about 2 times a month, and then I also was getting this nice paycheck, so I was spending like a couple $100s a month at Ulta and Sephora. And what I would do is I would basically review products, and I would tell people, this eyeshadow palette is awful, this mascara is really good, and I would spend the $40, $50 for these products and then tell people whether I liked it or not. Back then I wasn't returning any products. I would try it, and then if it was terrible, I would just talk about it online. So I would ensure that nobody else would waste their money. And it was funny because I remember the first time I said that a product was awful, I think the brand emailed me and said, what did you hate so much about it? And this was back in the days of Zoella and Michelle Phan. There was a very, very small group of people doing the beauty reviewing and the beauty vlogging, and I was kind of early into that scene, but my channels never took off in that sense. I didn't become this famous YouTuber. I didn't have millions of people reading my blog. I was much more I was definitely a micro influencer for years and years, but I started back then, so I kind of learned the best business practices and best tactics long term. What inspired me to start, I already told you guys, it was my college professor, and then all of my travels around the world from my corporate job really inspired me to keep going and keep telling people, okay, maybe you could, do your makeup this way when you go to Florida because it's super humid and your makeup is just gonna like fall off your face because it's so hot. And then maybe when you're in a dry climate, like in Tucson, you do your makeup this way. So I kind of paired the beauty with the travel and just kind of shared my tips. It was, 5 things to do in San Francisco, best brunch place in LA, or whatever it was. I was writing about it just because it was my own personal experience. So it was just me reviewing my life and what I was doing at the time. My brand has evolved in a number of ways. I just remember one of my first business cards was very childish now that I think about it, just because of where my brand has gone. But you always start somewhere, and you don't realize until 5-10 years from now what you did in the beginning was just, oh, that's so embarrassing. Because I'll look back at my old blog posts from 2012 and 13, and I've pretty much shut those down. I took them down, I made them private because I just don't like the quality, and the quality no longer represents me. But everyone starts somewhere, right? So my brand evolved and it's more professional now, but I'm still the same conversationalist. I'm very casual. I'm very honest. I've always been very honest. If something is terrible, I'm gonna be the first one to tell you. If I really love it, I'm also gonna tell you that. But I just don't like how people take a lot of deals and a lot of partnerships when they don't actually care for the product. If you don't actually use it and I'm your friend and I know you don't use it, how are you gonna convince, your audience that you use this product when I know you don't use it? Do you know what I mean? So I've always been very honest, very, just real. And I tell people, I call it like I see it. I think it was about 2 years ago that I realized this could potentially be a career. As you kind of see the brand partnerships roll in, more brands are getting on board with paying influencers, you start to realize that there is money to be made. And I think I thought about it 2 years ago, but I said I wouldn't leave my corporate job until I made more in 1 year with doing the blog and the social media in comparison to how much the corporate job was paying me. So last year, when I got to that number, I was still too hesitant. It's hard to leave a secure corporate job, especially when you like what you do. And I was traveling, like what's there not to like about it, right? So last year when I got to that point, I still told myself I need some kind of a sign. And when that sign happened, it was basically the decision that changed my thoughts about doing this full time. And what had happened was there were 2 trip opportunities. I had no PTO left to my name, and I knew I could either say no to these 2 opportunities and continue along this weird path of doing too much and never really, picking a lifestyle, because I'm doing this at night and I'm doing this during the day. It just didn't make sense. And it was basically a decision of, do I take these 2 trips, or do I just continue on doing this weird, I'm gonna be blogging and doing a full-time job? And it just made sense to leave, go on those 2 trips. And finally, when I left in October, it was one of those moments where I realized I wish I had left sooner. I wish I hadn't been as scared, because I would have gotten so much further had I left a year ago, or if I left 2 years ago when I was first considering this. And I think the biggest fear for people is that there is insecurity. You don't know if you're gonna get a campaign. You don't know if you're gonna land a 6-month partnership. But in time and with persistence, you will, especially if the quality of your content is good. If you have an audience, you will succeed. You just have to believe that you can do it. So that was kind of my biggest regret of not leaving sooner and working these long days and hours and working for, another company while also trying to build mine. Had I left sooner, it would be a whole different ballgame now. But you live and learn, right? So now we're switching over to the about section. So I'm going to talk more about what I do every day. And the biggest difference, I would say, in terms of doing this full time versus a traditional job, which is, you know, the 9 to 5, is that you never stop working. From the moment I wake up to the moment I fall asleep, I'm always thinking about an opportunity. I'm scheming, I'm like strategizing, I'm trying to think of how do I make this business even better. And the way that I make decisions about what I attend and the things that I dedicate my time to, there's a lot of questions that happen. As soon as somebody asks me, are you going to this boutique opening? Just as an example. I'm thinking in my mind, who's the owner? What kind of boutique is it? What do they sell? What kind of content can I get if I go there? Is there going to be someone there that can help further my career? Is this a paid opportunity? Can I make it a paid opportunity? It's really just about how does this help me long term? And that's really how I make my decisions. If there isn't a reason for me to be somewhere, I'd rather stay at home and work on content and edit photos and edit videos rather than spending time somewhere that's not going to prolong my career. Obviously that's different if my friend is, you know, needs my support or I'm doing something for a friend, but if it's something business related, I have so many questions that I have to ask myself, because it just doesn't make sense to spend my time doing that if it's not going to help in some way. And if I'm bringing exposure to an event, we have to talk about business and how do I get reimbursed for my time. So that's kind of what I think about every time. Question is, how many hours per week do you spend? I mean, I think it's at least 60 a week, but it could be more. It's a lot. Like I said, I do this full time. I invest all of my heart and soul into it. I'm always thinking of new ways to bring new content. And I really do follow what the social media platforms are doing. So if there's a new update, I'm on it. I'm trying to figure out how do I use this to further my presence online. So right now with Instagram, they're really pushing IGTV. So I've really been focusing on video content on Instagram in particular. And because Instagram is my biggest platform, it makes the most sense to spend my time there. So every time there's a new update, I'm just constantly reading about it. I'm looking at the improvements because every single thing that they push out that's brand new usually has some kind of bug associated with it. So yeah, I'm just really staying up with the algorithm changes, any new modifications, any improvements to the software. I mean, I'm always on social media, so I see these things right away. What does a typical day look like? I get asked this question all the time with interviews and podcasts, and it's different every single day. There's a lot of days where I do a lot of admin work. So I'm sitting on my laptop for 9-10 hours a day, and I will just go through emails, I'm writing blog posts, I'm editing photos, just like that stuff that you don't really know happens, but that actually takes a lot of time for all of us. And most days are not me, you know, doing cool stuff out in the world. That's just what I show you because I've worked on that content. So if I'm traveling, of course, I'm going to show you the travel content. But for the most part, that's not the content that I have every day because I'm usually doing admin stuff. So honestly, every day is different, but there's admin days, there's days that I work with my assistant and we're just reviewing products. So I'll spend time doing that. Mostly, every single day I try a new product. I'm trying to get this average of where I try maybe 2-3 products a day. It's just so overwhelming because most skincare and most beauty products you need to use over a certain period of time. So it's really hard to try stuff that quickly. I need at least 2-3 weeks of solid use of a product before I can even say it's good or bad, because you're not gonna get immediate results from anything. So it's hard to commit to that many products a day, but I try new eyeshadows, I'm trying the pigmentation, you know, mascaras, liners. Those are things that you can try, you know, multiple times a day. You just gotta use the makeup wipes. But that's, you know, certain days. Photo shoots are some days. Those take a lot of time, and it's always really hot in Arizona. So if I'm doing stuff here, I gotta do it early in the morning. And then if I'm traveling, we gotta plan for photo shoots too, in the midst of all the chaos of whatever the travel itinerary is. And then there's days where I'm doing videos, so my videographer will come over and we'll shoot for about half the day, and we'll just go pick out, we've already planned and strategized the scenes for the video, and we have to go get those scenes, shoot the content. So it really does vary. There's a lot of admin work, a lot of time on the laptop. Then there's a lot of time doing photo shoots, video shoots, testing products, and just capturing content. And probably the biggest time suck for me every single day is being on Instagram and responding to comments. So my social media time is obviously very important, because if you engage with people, they'll engage back with you. And that just takes a long time. So between my assistant and we probably spend 15 to 20 hours a day on Instagram, which Instagram probably thinks that I don't do anything besides Instagram, which is fine, but it just takes a lot of time. But it's the most important platform for me, and it pays for me to be on that platform. So it does take a lot of time. But yeah, to answer the question, there is no typical day. It's always different. So finding brand partners, another question I get all the time. This has gotten more and more competitive and difficult over time, because now everybody is wanting and doing this. There's still room, but you just gotta be unique and different. And I pitch a lot of the brands I wanna work with on my own, whether it's through Instagram direct message. I look and find the press contact on their website. I usually pursue them, because there is no way that they could find all of the influencers or find me or somebody else without us reaching out to them. There is thousands of bloggers and content creators and just Instagrammers and people who are famous on Twitter and all this stuff. It's so hard for them to find us. So I am a huge advocate of going after them and pitching them on your own. So a lot of those brand partnerships, I'm pitching myself. There are times when they come to me, but typically it's not a good fit, because if I'm pursuing the brand, I know it's good for my own brand and for my own image. And if I'm getting random emails about products that don't even make sense for my brand and what I do on a regular basis, it's usually a no. But also, I've really been fostering relationships for about 5-6 years now, and I'm really working hard to make those long-term relationships more fruitful now. Some of those brands are very competitive, and they go for the girls who have 1 million, 2 million followers. But it's so important to me to pursue the brands I want to work with, show them content that I've done in the past, and give them a reason to not say no to me. Something people would be surprised to learn about what you do. I actually don't like having my photo taken, which is the weirdest thing. Everyone is always so surprised by that, because that's what I do. You know, most of my content is photos of me. I actually just don't enjoy the process of having it taken, because I usually have to inconvenience somebody. I have to ask the awkward question of either my fiance, my friend, a random person in the street. Oh, hey, can you take a photo of me? And it's always just awkward, you know? And I hate that feeling of awkwardness asking for a photo. And then the other thing too, when I do photo shoots with my photographer and it's, you know, professional quality, I just don't like the process. It's usually hot, I'm sweating, it's just uncomfortable, and I'm smiling for 2 hours. It just doesn't feel good. I like the content that I get from the photo shoots, but I don't actually like the process of getting the photos. Hopefully that makes sense. What do I like most about my profession? What do I like least? The thing I like the most is getting to interact with people from all over the world, because obviously Tucson is pretty small, especially in comparison to some of the places I've lived in the past. And I want to meet people from all over. I don't want to just know people in the town that I live in. That's so 1995. So I love meeting people in Australia and people in the UK, and, you know, connecting with people in Bosnia, because that's where I was born. And it's so cool to be able to interact with people in New York City. I love New York City. People are so good there, and they're so like straightforward and honest. So I just love the idea that I can pretty much connect with anyone all throughout the world, as long as they're online, obviously. And it's cool to find people who like the things that I do. And then the thing I like the least, that's really hard, because I don't mean to be a negative Nancy, but there's a couple things that I don't like. I don't like fake bloggers, people who just promote every product just because there's money associated to it. I don't like when PR brands try to undercut you. They ask to a ridiculous price for, you know, like 3 months worth of work. You're like, no, Susan. And then I also just don't like negativity and trolls. Happens all the time. One of my recent IGTV videos where I styled denim shorts got a lot of hateful comments, and I was just trying to delete them faster than they were coming in. And yeah, so there's a couple different things that I'm not really the biggest fan of, but it's part of the job. You know, it's kind of like you don't want to fire somebody in a corporate job. It's the same kind of thing. You never look forward to it, but you got to do it. What is your favorite platform? I think I already answered this. I love Instagram. It's my biggest audience. I like the fact that it's visual. I like that people inspire me on Instagram, so I spend most of my time there. What tools do you use to organize and manage your channels? My assistant. She helps me stay organized. And honestly, I mostly manage Instagram, and I just have a content calendar in place where I decide, okay, what days am I posting on Instagram? Because that's my consistent platform. I don't post consistently on anything else. Twitter is a crapshoot. Pinterest, I truly only pin when I have a new blog post, which is inconsistent. YouTube videos, super inconsistent. I mean, it's not good that I'm so inconsistent about all the other platforms, but I have Instagram on lock. And that's just, you gotta pick one. You can't do everything across the board. I don't have a team the size of Gary Vee, for example, to have content across all platforms multiple times a day. Maybe one day. Okay, and then the last section is the advice section. The biggest key to success in this industry. Biggest key to success is being honest, because consumers can see right through the BS. If you're promoting a product that you don't truly believe in, people can see right through it. That's why your sales will not be connected with what you're saying. And sure, not everyone's goal is to sell on Instagram or, you know, whatever platform you're using, but the idea is that you have to be authentic in your recommendations, because you're on this platform telling people what they should and shouldn't buy because of your own experience. This is not a job for those who are just taking products to get paid. That's not how it works, and that's not how it worked back in 2013. It just seems like people take these products, no matter how toxic they are or how bad they are for you, just because of the paycheck. Don't do that. What was your biggest blunder, failure, and what did you learn from it? Biggest blunder or failure is not getting a contract and just letting things kind of sit in an email. While now legal practice does include promises made over email, it's just not as solidified. You need a contract, and you need to include in the contract the things that are going to be very important to you. I had a brand that I was working with not respond to me for over 4 weeks, and it made me go ballistic. And when I told them that my attorney would be reaching out to them, they just didn't respond. Their attorney sent my attorney a letter. It was awful. You need to make sure that when you decide to work with somebody, you guys share the same morals, you have the same ideals, there's a contract, because nothing is finalized until there's a contract. Say that again, nothing final until you sign the paperwork. If you had to start over, what would you do differently? If I had to start over, I think if I had to start over, I would take better photos, and I would have full width photos. Because in 2012, I was doing those tiny little photos with like 2 paragraphs of text and a tiny little thumbnail size photo. So I would go back and redo that. I mean, that was fine in 2012, it's just not fine now. So any additional words of wisdom for those looking to make the jump into social media? I think the biggest thing is that you have to be passionate about something, and you have to be unique about it. There's too many people doing the same thing or copying other people, especially today. I know people leaving high school, leaving college just want to be an influencer, but you have to be passionate about something, whether it's, you know, plus size fashion or gardening or, you know, cooking specific foods, whether it's vegetarian, vegan. Like, there's gotta be a very specific niche in order to succeed, and you have to be passionate about it for a long period of time. You can't just start the blog and then disappear in 6 months, because it's not gonna be a fruitful long-term career. So yeah, I think you just have to find something that you're passionate about. I think I've answered all of the questions. If you guys have any other questions for me, you can feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I am at adaatude all the time, pretty much all day, ADAATUDE, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.